Carrie Perras analyzed a 2018 Forbes article, and she discussed her findings in her journal article, Moving Towards Equal Pay for Professional Female Athletes. Now, the Forbes story listed the top 100 highest paid athletes in the world, and to no surprise, there was not a single woman listed. Now today, I'm going to be talking about the gender pay gap between male and female athletes in professional sports. Now, I've collected data from numerous reliable sources, so I feel I can effectively talk about this subject. And I've also been an avid sports fan for most of my life, so I've witnessed this through the media firsthand for a long time. So I'm going to start by talking about the issue of gender pay disparities in sports by providing an example. Then I'm going to talk about some of the causes of this unequal pay throughout the years. And finally, I'll present a few solutions for male and female athletes to start working towards equal pay for everybody. Now let's begin by looking at the controversy behind gender pay differences in professional sports. Now, discrimination between male and female athletes is a problem that has existed in the sports industry for decades. The Journal of Sport and Social Issues analyzed media content from the 1990s, and they found that women were an underrepresented group in the media, which is absolutely insane since almost half of the world is females. There was also an article published in the UCLA Women's Law Journal that examined the salary differences between basketball players in the NBA and the WNBA. Now, the WNBA, if you don't know, is the Women's National Basketball Association. And this association has been around for almost 25 years, and unfortunately, they are not receiving pay anywhere close to what NBA athletes are receiving. There's those big breakout stars like LeBron James, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Russell Westbrook that are receiving millions and millions of dollars every year. And while WNBA players, the maximum salary is about $115,000. While on the other hand, it's required that all NBA players receive at least $560,000 per season. That is a huge difference. And the NBA actually controls 70% of the WNBA. And everybody knows that the NBA is a multi-billion-dollar business. So there's no reason why the NBA can't supply higher wages for these women basketball players. Now, the WNBA players are actually obligated to play year-round. As we know, NBA players only play for a couple months and then they get a very long break. But the WNBA players, they play year-round. So there's no reason why they're not getting fairly compensated at all. They constantly practice and they are dedicated to their sport just like NBA players are. So now that we've talked about the issue at hand, let's look at some of the explanations for these gender pay differences in sports. So over the years, people have developed several theories as to why the gender pay gap still exists in the world of professional sports. Now, I am aware that gender pay gaps exist everywhere, but today we're just going to be talking about the sports industry. There was a journal article published by the Loyola of Los Angeles Entertainment Law Review, and it explained one of the most obvious reasons as to why female athletes are not compensated as much as male athletes. And the leading factor that contributed to their decreased wages was the fact that there was a limited amount of media coverage for female sporting events. Now, if you turn on your TV, there's so many sports channels. There's ESPN, there's NFL networks, there's a channel for tennis, there's so many. And out of all of that sports coverage, whether they're talking about sports or showing sports being played, only 4% of those conversations are talking about female athletes or female sporting events. Now, ESPN is a huge contributor to this problem because obviously we know that they are a huge business and that they kind of dominate the sports market. They spend $2.6 billion a year to air NBA games, while they only spend $12 million to air WNBA games. So it's clear that that is a huge number difference. And there's no reason that the WNBA games don't deserve some prime time. I mean, I can't remember a time that WNBA games were in prime time unless it was the playoffs. NBA games are on constantly. So another cause for gender wage differences in sports is because of differing biological characteristics between men and women. Now, this is a very outdated argument in my opinion because men and women are becoming more and more equal every day. There's no reason that we should look at a man and think that he's more athletically gifted than a woman. Men and women are capable of doing different things. Men can do some things that women can't and vice versa. So there's no reason that women should not be compensated equally because a man is better at sports, which isn't even true. Women are still achieving things and they are talented. There's no reason that they aren't getting compensated equally. They're still putting in so much hard work, and so are male athletes. I'm not going to take away from that, but they should be getting equal treatment. So now that we've covered some of the potential causes for this gender wage gap, we're going to finish up and talk about some solutions that could potentially solve the problem. Now, every problem has a solution, in my opinion. So the gender pay gap for professional athletes is no different. According to the Wall Street Journal, the simplest solution to this problem is to watch women's sports on television. When they are on TV, sit down and watch it, because if the broadcasting companies see that you are watching female sports, they might put them on air more, and companies will enjoy putting them on air because they're making money from it. Another thing that companies can do is people can start going to in-person sporting events. I know we're in COVID times right now, but that's soon going to be ending. So you can financially benefit some of these female organizations through ticket sales and merchandising, and that would be very helpful. So in closing, I discussed why I think that female athletes deserve equal pay compared to male athletes. First, I talked about the problem at hand by providing an example and analyzing it. Second, I talked about some of the reasons for why this has been so prevalent over the decades. And finally, I presented some solutions that could potentially solve the problem. So I'm going to end with a statistic from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who found that the average American woman earns 81% of what the average American man earns. Now, we all need to start working together to reach a 50-50 wage split between men and women in every industry.